everybody. Welcome to another live panel. STIR Crazy Month. We're playing Justin Ford's favorite music. It's actually called Stir It Up. So this is the kickoff to our Safety Week panel. Thank you so much for being here, whether or not you're watching live on Facebook, if you're watching live on YouTube, or if you're joining us on LinkedIn. Thanks so much for being here. This is your opportunity to ask these incredible people and myself about all things short-term rental safety related. And today we are talking about safety by design and how smart interiors protect our guests. A big thank you to our sponsor, Guesty, who are sponsoring the entire of STIR Crazy Month, where we're covering the topics of safety, sustainability, trust, insurance, and regulations. And we're going to kick right into this. But before we do, one more thing just to add before we get going. If you have not registered yet, you can head over to vacationrentalformula.com/SSTIR, the STIR, and you can register, and that gives you access to our event app and our gamification, where you actually have the opportunity to win two VIP tickets to the VR Nation conference being held in Austin, Texas, on April 27th and 28th. And this is a huge opportunity for you to get in on this. So if you are in the app right now, you can actually click on the QR code that's on the screen, and that will check you in and give you an extra 200 points towards winning those tickets. So I'll give you a few seconds just to grab your phone out and click on that. We'll pop that up at the end as well. And as well as that, we also have our secret Easter egg. So in the gamification section, you can go in, click on the Easter egg, which is Easter egg 6, and you can put in the secret code, which is design. So the answer to Easter egg 6 is design. That will give you another 200 points. All right, everybody, that's all from me in the opening. I'm just going to turn the music down here and pass it over to Heather, who's actually going to lead us through today's session. So, Heather, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mike. I think this is the best start to a webinar I've seen for a long time, or a panel. So well done for that. And just to reiterate, this is not just boring old stuff. This STIR Crazy Month, you're getting the opportunity to win this great prize at the end. And those, Mike didn't mention it, but those 2 tickets, VIP tickets to VR Nation, worth over $2,000. So, this is such a great opportunity. All you have to do is pick up those Easter eggs, join up, register, and you start earning points all the way along just by doing a little more than coming on and joining these panels and listening to the podcasts and all this sort of stuff. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining in, for coming along and listening to this. We're talking about safety by design today. And I have with me, who else? Justin Ford from Breezeway, the safety man. I mean, there are other things you're called, Justin.
I'm not called a safety woman, so yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah. And we have also with us Jessica Duce from Duce Design. She is also the founder and event planner, or whatever you'd like to call it, for the Vacation Rental Design Summit. And that's yet another conference that would be great for people to attend. We'll make sure you get information on vacation rental design. Welcome, Jessica. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And last but by no means least, I am so delighted to welcome Sarah Karakaian as well, from Thanks for Visiting. Before we put this session together, I hadn't met Sarah. And that is one.
I love it's what brought us together. The safety.
Yeah. That's just one of the huge benefits of doing these things, that I get to meet people that I've seen for all the time, and on socials and around the industry, and get that opportunity to meet and chat. And we had a great conversation recently. So thanks for joining us as well, Sarah.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So we are talking about safety by design. It's interesting. Mike and I went to, and Justin was there as well, to the, Jessica, you weren't there. You weren't at the Vermont Short-Term Rental Alliance.
No,
No,
VR.
no.
I was at VRMA in Phoenix.
Oh, okay. So we were at the Vermont Short-Term Rental Alliance Conference in Mount Snow, Vermont last year, and there you sat through a session, Mike, about design and safety, and this is really what inspired this panel. Can you give us a little bit of what you got out of that panel?
I think what really hit me is that for the longest time, and I've worked with Justin for a long time on getting the message out about safety, and quite often, we need to reframe the conversation about safety, where there is mandatory requirements you have to have by law. But how do you get your guests to realize that safety can be part of your brand? How do you make safety part of your brand? And how do you put that front and center without kind of plastering it, in big letters that I'm safe and I have smoke detectors? How do you do it in a subtle but interesting and exciting way? And there were some images that were shared during that panel. And Justin, I know you've got those. And if you check, if you're on Facebook or Instagram, I shared a link to a Pinterest board that I created today with some of those images. And it was just how you can, a fire extinguisher that's well mounted on a wall and is exactly where it's meant to be. You put a nice vinyl decal around that of a scuba diver, where the fire extinguisher is actually the tank on the scuba diver's back. It immediately draws the attention, the eye of the guest, and it makes it an exciting feature. A fire extinguisher is not an exciting feature of a property, and typically we're so used to seeing them, it becomes, in an emergency, you don't even notice it's there. But you put a scuba diver on that fire extinguisher, and all of a sudden it becomes this wildly creative idea, which is exciting for guests. They're going to share that on their social media because it's so cool and unique. Justin, I'd like share some of the thoughts. I mean, you've talked to a lot of designers about this stuff.
Yeah, and that's exciting. What's really cool too for Jessica to know, I don't know if she knew this, but some of those designers that were speaking at the Vermont conference were tutored, so to speak, at the Vacation Rental Design Summit. So it's great to just see how that's expanding, out of there. And, you've got to take into account that, in an emergency, only 13% of people are actually going to go even try and use a fire extinguisher. So here's, just using that example, here you are taking something that there's a chance 87% of people aren't going to go anywhere near it. And now you've just made it so that 100% of people know that that's there, and you've increased that because that fire extinguisher, and Sarah's heard me say this over and over for the past 5 years, it's a tool that you're giving your guests to save your property, make it easy for them to easily get access to it.
We've all seen on LinkedIn, the images that have been posted of the crazy images of exteriors of properties, but also interiors of properties, where they're focusing on aesthetics and design, but sometimes at the expense of safety. Bunk beds come to mind for me. Let's throw this open to you all. What are some of the biggest design mistakes that can create hazards in vacation rentals, and how can they be avoided? And I'm throwing that one open.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Sarah.
I was against this for the longest time, but as I've obviously hosted more and more guests and been a part of more and more hosts' journeys and just hearing their stories, I am no longer a fan of area rugs. And I know, Justin, you know what? If you can win me over, I feel like you can win just about anybody over. But honestly, it saves me money. It's one less thing for me to decide on or think about or chat about when we're onboarding a new property into our portfolio. And there are so many other ways to introduce color and layers into a property that aren't going to be trip hazards, because you end up becoming blind to when those corners start curling, or when it shifts on the floor and it's not something that is has a proper area rug or the rug pad underneath it. I think I've been converted, Justin. So I think that's something that we can do less of or without entirely in the vacation rental homes.
Jessica.
I would like to be devil's advocate, Sarah.
Yeah, do
I'm
it.
going to throw this out there. So I work with a designer that developed a rug system, and her company is called Wugs, and it is a metal track system that is installed on all sides of the rug, and it keeps it stationary and safe, and it actually adds to the longevity of the rug. So it literally cannot move. And as the designer side of it, aesthetically and the comfort zone, because design isn't just what you see, it's what you feel, you hear, you touch. So the element of the toes touching a soft surface when they get out of bed, etc., providing that experience for your guest with a safety solution of her metal system, which she can send to anybody now. You don't have to buy her rug. She can just send you the metal pieces. That may be a solution for a safe way to have a rug.
As long as Justin says it's fine, because I just can't be out here having a guest slip, trip, or fall in one of our properties, knowing that I have Justin always on us. But yeah, no, I love that. And I love that there are creative people out there in our industry who are, because design does matter. And the way the property looks does matter. And the way the guest feels in our properties, I mean, that is our product. So it matters. Yeah. But obviously, we need to be paying attention to how we can reduce liability and risk in the properties. So I love that these solutions are coming to the market for us. We deserve it.
You know, one of the big words that, I picked up at the Vacation Rental Design Summit is anticipatory. And, the term anticipatory, I have trouble with it. Anticipatory design was thrown out there. I go in and out of 400 or 500 rental properties a year. And one thing I consistently see over and over is people not anticipating where guests are going to plug in their cell phone. Most people don't know how to vacation. And so when they get to the properties, they're just scrolling on their phone, whether it's by the pool or charging it next to their bed. And I see so many people putting their bedside tables in front of the outlets. And, for $12, $13 on Amazon, you can buy an extension so that they can plug in there and not have to do it. But we shouldn't be in a position where our guests are having to move furniture beside the bed, which creates a hazard, to be able to charge their phones. Or even sometimes I'm out at the swimming pool and the only outlet is like in the ceiling. And you'll actually see that the chair that's out there is like bent on the back. And it's like the guests are climbing up there to plug in their cell phone because nobody anticipated where they're going to charge it. So that's a big one for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it is such a simple solution to buy those.
Well, we don't want our guests to have to do work either. I mean, the safety element is first and foremost, but we anticipate the needs of your guests so that if they go for it, it should just be there. And how awesome is it if it's already there? They don't have to move things. It's also safer. That's win-win.
I want to just go back to the bedside rugs because I mean that Stir Crazy Month is built around the narrative of Staywise Rentals, our fictional property management company that over 5 weeks is dealing with so many different issues. And the issue that they're dealing with this week is a guest that got up in the middle of the night, stepped out of bed, slipped on the bedside rug, just went from under her. She smacked her head against the bedside table. She's hurt her ankle and wrist, and she ended up in the emergency room. And there's a few other issues around that Justin's talking about, in fact, in the podcast episode, which we have tomorrow. So the thing with Staywise Rentals is that they've got bedside rugs in every one of their 50 properties, and they're going to have to be dealing with that. Jessica, I love this creative idea to put these metal strips around them. Justin, does that change? Does that change how you feel about these rugs?
Yeah, and I've seen Wugs, and Whitney, who makes those, she's fantastic. I think Sarah's had her on her podcast too. She's amazing, and she's got a great product there. So I hope people look into it. But the one thing I'll say, and I'm really interested to hear also Jessica and Sarah's comments on this. You can have a rug. I mean, what's the purpose? I always ask people, what's the purpose here? Why is this rug under the bed from a functional point? And it's because when people get up at night, it's nice to, under your bare feet, to have that warmth and cozy if you're walking to go to the bathroom. And I think we can achieve that if it's done right. And just a couple of inches can make a difference on where that is. Sometimes I'll go in and I'm like, boy, if this carpet was back 2 inches, and then you look and it's 2 inches off the wall. So it's like, why just push it back 2 inches? And now when someone's walking out around the corner of the bed in the darkness to go to the bathroom, it's not as much of a trip hazard as it would have been before.
There was actually there was a video, Justin, you shared in Vermont, which was you working with a client, and the corner of the rug stuck right out into the main traffic flow path, you know, around the living room to the kitchen. And you showed in that video how you can step back and look at why that's a trip hazard and just simply adjust where it is. So, you know, move the couch out the way, move the rug up against the wall, put the couch back on the rug, and now that corner is out of the line of traffic.
Can I just say, like, rugs aren't necessarily the bad guy. It's the way the design is. So if you, to your point, Mike, or, you know, the way people typically buy the wrong size rug for a space.
Mhm.
If everything is anchored, if it has the right pad or the right metal stripping, then it's placed correctly. The rug isn't the bad guy. It's the bad design.
And it's keeping your eye on the rug. Like if anything starts to happen where it unravels or the corners start curling, I mean, that's something we can put on our checklist to make sure that we're just making sure that with time and use, all the things in our home are still in working order and aren't creating any sort of safety hazard either. So it's also on us hosts to, hey, if you want to have this element in the property, which I totally get it, we just have to stay on top of it.
Sometimes, so sorry.
Well, I was going to just direct this to you, Jessica, just about creating these beautiful, inviting spaces, you know, incorporating design elements while maximizing guest safety. I mean, how do you go about that? Can you give us some examples from the designers that you've worked with?
Like, how do we create design spaces with keeping safety in mind?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, thank you, Heather. One of the things we do, you know, we copy hotels' design in some respects. So hotel rooms never have rugs. They have carpet squares, and carpet squares can be changed out when you have issues and need to change your flooring. So that's another solution you can look at if you want to be able to provide that aesthetic, because we look at as design for the senses as the guest experience. So when we have a design project, of course, we want it to be beautiful and create these spaces. I've learned a lot from Justin over the years. One of my favorite things that we have started incorporating is there is a art system that has a built-in bar on it. And so we can stack art on a stairwell, and it actually becomes an additional handrail for safety, but looks like art. So that's
see this.
Yes. And we put it on the Pinterest board, Sarah. But I'd be happy to send a link or have one sent out. It's beautiful design. This same company is becoming revolutionary in beautiful safety items. So that's what we're doing. We're also trying to incorporate more of the elements of aging in place design, but for short-term rentals, so that we have access for everybody, down to where we've placed the faucet or how you've staged furniture. One of the biggest mistakes I personally see in design is when people are sourcing on their own, they're not looking for weight or size requirements. And that's a big problem in the longevity of your goods. And what happens, there really is, you know, like those cute little mid-century chairs that everybody loves to put in those rentals, those are made for 100 pounds. And that's it. So if you'll look into those basic ideas, and you'll get longevity, a safer space, and you can do a better design. And the last thing, and then I'll be quiet, is I am team bunk bed, but I am team icon bunks. And so when we do bunk beds, we work with icon bunks, and they're actually helping us design a bunk room right now that will look like you're entering a tour bus. And they do the full design, and they're all about safety. So we don't necessarily have to rule things out. We just have to find the right resources.
Yeah, weigh in on bunk beds, Justin, and particularly bunk beds and windows, because I'm seeing this, you know, so often. And this is, I mean, is this about design, or is this about just efficiency and fitting things into a room? So we'll come to that in a sec. But what's your thoughts on the bunks?
bunk bed, like Jessica said, that you can, Icon's great. There are quality bunk beds out there. The ladders have to be fixed. You got to meet these federal standards. But you go back even to what Mike said. There's regulations on why certain things have to be a certain way, but everything we're talking about is not. There's no regulations that say, you can't have a rug around the carpet a certain way, or that you need to, use Icon versus a different type of bunk bed. And that's where the challenge is. And that's where, as Sarah was mentioning before, and it's what I say all the time, complacency is devastating. You've got to stay on top of maintaining that. So you can't just throw a bunk bed in your room, be done with it. Those things, they've got all kinds of different weight sizes, even though you got a sticker on it that says no more than one person. I can assure you 3 are up there and they're starting to crack. We just had a case actually on Friday before I headed out of the office. It came in where a bunk bed broke and collapsed on top of a child underneath. So you gotta pay attention to it all the time.
And I think that's why it's important to work with professionals like Jessica, because Jessica, like, the amount of projects you see and being first to understanding what products are good for vacation rentals and aren't, I think is a testament to working and how important it is to work with someone who's actually knowledgeable about these products and not just going to Amazon and getting the cheapest thing, because what is cheap now might cost you a lot in a lawsuit when someone hurts themselves. And so Jessica's able to rattle off these solutions to things that I've maybe signed off on because I'm over here managing the properties, and I'm trying to convince an owner to work with someone like Jessica is difficult enough. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, just get the rugs out. I don't even care anymore. I want to make sure that the home is beautiful and safe. But I love that there are these solutions that we have to also, I think, everyone listening have to, as a community, like, let's share these products, because I didn't know about Icon bunks and I talk about short-term rentals all the time. You know what I mean? So we have some work to do in terms of making sure that we're all sharing this information and solutions, like working with people like Jessica to have best of both worlds.
I think one of the things you were saying right there, it's just gone out my head. You were just saying.
I was rattling a lot. I get passionate about this stuff.
It'll come back to me. I'll remember. I will come back to me.
Yeah, I think this, where Jessica is going with vacation rental design and coming into this space, I think is just so important. Mm-hmm. And, we need to shout more about the Vacation Rental Design Conference. It's not a summit. It's not just for designers. It's right. It's for hosts and it's for managers to go and see where they can be at that intersection of safety and design and create these beautiful spaces without compromising safety.
Well, can I just say back, and Sarah, thank you so much for what you said, because a good designer in this space should be listening to you as well. It's collaborative on both sides, and for the people out there that have never worked with a designer, you want to seek out a designer that respects and understands your business mm-hmm. and your ROI, because that's what it comes down to, right? So those solutions can be safe and beautiful and be good for your ROI. So a collaborative relationship between what you do and a designer is the key.
I remember what I was going to say now. Going back to what Sarah was saying. One of the challenges I think a lot of people, or property managers especially, face is, when you're working with an owner and trying to convince them. There's a difference between convincing and saying, this is our standards, and if you don't meet them, then I'm sorry, we can't rent for you. And I think that is a big challenge we face, where, have this beautiful property, but the owners are not willing to concede to the requirements that you have set. And I think that's a really important part, is to get into your terms and conditions with new owners to stipulate what your requirements are for safety. And there should be, a no ifs, ands, or buts. It's like, your property will have X, Y, Z, and if we see something, we have the right to remove it or change it or do whatever. And I think that, Heather, I know we ran foul of this several times, of trying to work with owners who really got their back up about spending money or changing something, because it's still their property and they want to use it. But at the same time, it's like, you tell them to remove those bunk beds because they're not safe. It's, my kids love those bunk beds. Well, I'm sorry, you can't rent with us then. It's a hard balance to maintain, but I think that you have to decide as a company and as a brand, what is it that's more important? Is it to have that property, or is it to stick by your guns and whatever it is that you're putting in your terms and conditions?
We came across a number of properties where I would go out as in my role as in business development and see things that just did not meet our standards. But they stuck to their guns because from their point of view, it was a design aesthetic. It was one I remember very clearly, that a property had been built and it was an architect designed property and it was beautiful. Now, when they'd had it built, there was a staircase right down the center in the living area. When they'd had it built, they of course, to keep with their building, the building standards, they had the banisters on either side. But after the building inspector had gone, they took away the banisters because they felt it impacted the look of this staircase coming down into the living space.
Ugh.
And we could have got absolute top dollar for this, but there was just absolutely no way. It was an open staircase, no banisters, nothing either side. And we talked about, we could put glass up there or something where you'd still see the beauty of the staircase, but it would also be safe. And I do remember the owner saying, oh, well, we're just not going there. We're just not going there. I'll find another agency to help me out. So thank you very much. I had driven 3.5 hours to go to this property, but I was very confident in turning it down and driving away and feeling that I'd really dodged a bullet.
It really has to be a non-negotiable for you as you get into managing property for others. I mean, I had Heather, I have a beautiful Victorian downtown prime location. It would have been an incredible revenue generator for us, but he has this in-ground hot tub with no fence around the backyard. And it's just and he aesthetically, he didn't want to invest in it. It was beautiful, but I'm just like, I can't, money aside in terms of lawsuits and the headache, have that weight on my brain of having something tragic happen on a property that's in our portfolio. It simply isn't worth it. And I think, Heather, at the end of the day, you made out quite well in terms of having those kind of non-negotiables and being able to say no to incredible properties like that. It'll still work out, saying no to those things and walking away and feeling good about it.
Well, we were able to build on it on our website by, having a safety page. And this all our properties meet safety standards. And we were talking about this with Chris Morn last week about trust signals on a website. And, one of those big trust signals is having a safety page that says we don't compromise on safety. And, as our guest, you won't find a place that has not had a safety audit. And we're sort of stepping away from design a little bit, but I think this is just so important, and I'd love to get that across to people, that having that safety page on a website it's going to make you more money.
And Justin's been talking about this a lot recently about using safety as a means of marketing is put that front and center of your brand and say that this is what we do. And I think you had a great quote or a great stat, I think, in Vermont about how it was how much somebody's ROI or sales went up once they started posting at least once a week about safety.
Yeah, it's on average, it's 9 to 10 points on occupancy. And I know, Sarah, you guys have seen that too with promoting it. And I think, one of the tough things, and I'm curious to hear on two different sides, Sarah's thoughts on this and then how Jessica would maybe address it. I think one of the biggest challenges that's out there is getting safety items in your marketing photos. Personally, I'd like to see more of that. A lot of times I go out and people are like, we got to take the fire extinguisher down and the pool safety signs down before we take our photos. We don't want those to be in the photos. But I think there's a way to incorporate those and make those still a part of the scene. I think, personally, I don't want to rent a property if someone isn't showcasing that.
Actually, business partners of mine are going on vacation in Phoenix, and they are specifically looking for property. They have 4 young children, and they are specifically looking for properties that highlight the safety elements of having a property that has a pool and how their 2-year-old isn't going to end up in it when they turn their back for 2 seconds. And so that was interesting. They're like, but no photo, we have to call, and then we have to like dig in a little bit more, and it's just taking longer than we thought. And it's like, do we just go to a hotel because we know there'll be commercial? So just in that, and I'm not making this up. It's a conversation I had yesterday about this concern they have that these properties are beautiful and the murals are great and like all these things are awesome, but to highlight that and say, hey, families are welcome, and we have your young children in mind. These places are beautiful. Here's all the design elements, and here's how we're going to make sure your family stays safe. I mean, I think that's a no-brainer. That's easy to do.
I'm going to try something right here and see if it's going to work. I'm going to share my screen. This is dangerous. Because I really want to, because I know some people won't have made it to that Pinterest page yet. If you guys, that does look okay. Oh, look who's here on top left. So even something as simple as that, Sarah sharing there, buying smoke detectors and smoke alarms and fire extinguishers, that's a great thing to put on your social media. You're out there buying this stuff. But these were the images I was talking about how you can, you could put this up, as part of your marketing. Just it's the design aspect of the imagery. But the fun that you can have with this to attract people, that just kind of shows your brand as well, that you're just, a little bit more fun.
I love it.
Is Jessica, do you have the one of the handrail you were talking about? Is that on this Pinterest board?
I put it in this board. Yes.
You did post it, but then it disappeared.
Well, I added it to the board that I don't know where it is. There's my bathroom. Okay, that's a handicap accessible bathroom. And then I added another one that would show the
I did see it was the handrail like built into the picture.
Yes, but I have a suggestion about the safety pictures or the safety images for rent. We just started this, but in a lot of your listing photos, people are using people in the photos, right, to show that. And so we're actually getting ready to shoot a project, and we are having the safety elements with people. So we have some children that are going to be in the shoot, and they're pointing to the safety sign at the pool. And then we have a shot that's planned, a shot list, and it's planned in the kitchen, and it intentionally shows the fire extinguisher. We're going to have somebody making an expression and having food and things out in the kitchen. So we're actually planning on styling our shoot for the rental to also show the safety. And I hope that kind of helps.
Well,
makes it interesting and catches people's eyes. And then hopefully, like your friend said, it will show them that you're safe.
When you think about marketing, and that if you know who your guest avatar is, that person that you're really trying to attract your property, if you're family friendly, what is the one thing that parents and caretakers think about first and foremost? It's the safety of their kids. And so if you highlight that in your marketing and how it aligns with all the fun things and the design elements that you have in your property, I mean, that's win-win.
Yeah.
I love this. So let's go back to actually looking at a property. So which areas of a rental? I mean, Justin, you see a lot. Which areas tend to pose the highest safety risks?
Well, beyond moving inside the property, we know most guest injuries, and thanks to our friends, Proper Insurance, most of the guest injuries occur in the first hour of arrival. They're not familiar with the property. A lot of it's related to lighting. So that's a big one. Lately, I'm seeing, and I just, again, full disclosure, I always tell people this, I will never do expert witness work. I don't do that. I'm an educator, but I get calls from lawyers all the time that want me to. And there's so many slip and falls in the bathrooms lately. I did some research on it. There's a 1 in 3.7 million chance you're going to get attacked by a shark, but there's a 1 in 7,000 chance you're going to get injured in your bathroom. And so I'm always terrified. My wife knows this. When I get near the water and there's a shark, I'm like Scooby-Doo running across the top of the water. And yet I go into a bathroom and don't think much of it. So I'm curious, Jessica, we've never even really talked about it much. What do we do about bathrooms?
About bathrooms?
Yeah.
So here I am talking about rugs, but I don't put rugs in a bathroom. And again, I just learned that from the hospitality industry. So to me, that's a big one right there. And then we're really careful about where we have our towel placement. And, I just had to start incorporating the bars in the showers because they're not pretty. They're never pretty. But designed by Capella, You can find them on Instagram. They're the same ones that, and on websites, but they're the same company that does the art with the handle. They just started creating more attractive bars for showers and near toilets, and they're safety rated and all the things. So there's ways to be, interesting. But as your ROI STR designer, that is not where I would spend all the money if you had a limited budget. I would get the safety handle that isn't as pretty and put the money somewhere else, in full disclosure.
Yeah, that's so we've done bathrooms, and we talked about here how smart interiors protect guests, but I think we should touch on the exteriors as well. Outdoor spaces. Justin, I know we've talked about hammocks. This one pretty dear to your heart. You mentioned, Jessica, the furniture. I know that when I started renting out my properties, and we're going back to 1998, last century, I furnished cheaply. Everything was cheap. I'd just come out from England to Canada. I'd found Walmart for the very first time, and it was like an Aladdin's cave for me, and everything was so cheap. And I got all these plastic chairs for outside, and then could not understand why in the first rental, 3 of my plastic chairs were broken. But that was it. I was fortunate. Those plastic chairs just got broken. They didn't damage a person as they were on the way down, as these chairs dismantled themselves. So now I would always look at the labels that has the weight on them, and if they don't have a label with a weight limit, wouldn't buy them anyway. What thoughts do you have on the outdoor spaces, Jessica, in terms of creating beautiful spaces, yet recognizing that there are safety elements involved in everything we do?
Well, for outdoor spaces, I have some brands that I'm very specific that I consistently work with. And Justin, I know at the summit you met with Pollywood. They are one of my preferred partners. They have a lifetime warranty. They do a lot of safety work. They give back. That's also important. So for selections, I look for companies like that, and I use Pollywood furniture. It's heavier. They don't want to move it around. The warranty is great, but we also really work hard on what Justin was referencing earlier with anticipatory design. So we try to create kind of force where people are going to be. And by creating these vignettes, these activity areas, we're kind of controlling what they're going to do. So to your point, Justin, about the exterior outlets, and we'll create a beautiful area where they have plenty of things they can access with our safe furniture. And we know that's where they're going to plug in their phone, and that's where they're going to have their cooler, and that's where the safety sign is, and everything is safe. And we haven't made it quite as inviting anywhere else. So we're controlling them as well with the safety elements.
I mean, this is where this design space is so needed in this industry. I hear this stuff and it's like, where were you 10 years ago when I was getting started? I love this.
Well, we're here now. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
I mean, so I did find that image. I'm just going to pull it up right here. If you can see that.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's not huge, but you can see here there's the picture, and there's actually a handrail built right into the bottom of the picture. So the whole it's not just obviously hanging from the picture; it is actually into the studs of the wall.
Right.
But that particular situation there, building code doesn't require you to have a handrail for those few stairs, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have one.
Right.
And this is the thing to get across to owners and any business owner really is that don't just go with what is required by the bare minimum. That's building code is designed for that, is the bare minimum. So you can always go a little bit over. Something else that just came up on that same website, which was fantastic, is starting to look at even your glassware and your mugs. Go with wide bottom mugs and glasses, because you're going to limit the risk of them being knocked over, which is going to save you on your breakage. But also it's going to, just limit the risk of people injuring themselves from using those, glasses and mugs.
This is where I get to interject my stat. 73% of all our guests, according to a survey done 2 years ago, are going to be intoxicated at some point in time in your property. So, yeah, I like the idea of the big wide glasses for that. Sarah, is that something you guys have been seeing in some of the properties?
We don't do the whole stemmed glassware, but I no. The answer to that is no.
I mean, avoiding stems. I mean, like my wife and I, we love sparkling wine, but we just don't drink in big stems anymore. We just keep them, they're beautiful, like to have exactly the same glass, but just without the stem.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But thinking about those details, I mean, that is our responsibility to really think about and be thoughtful and purposeful with every decision we make and every element we put into those properties, because someone's going to be using it. We don't know who that human is. We don't know if they're going to be intoxicated. We don't know if they're, and so it can feel overwhelming, but I think that's why we have people like Jessica and Justin doing this good work of helping us stay ahead of the curve and knowing of these great brands that are offering products to help us offer better stay.
There was something I picked up in Justin's safety inspector course, which really kind of hit with me, because I see this all the time. Because I'm a firefighter by trade, and I know in our kitchens we just don't really look after our stuff. And one of the things that was in that course is that what's more dangerous, a dull knife or a sharp knife? And it's actually a dull knife, because you're going to put more pressure on it. It's not actually going to cut the thing that you're doing, and especially if that's how you actually end up with more severe injuries, is with dull knives in your properties. So if you maintain and look after them. Sorry, go on.
I'm glad you brought those up, because someone asked me. I think I was in Beverly Hills doing a shoot a little while ago, and they asked me in this interview, what's the most common injury that does happen in a short-term rental? And it's a laceration. People cut themselves. Knives are one of those things that happen, and people say, well, there's not much you can do about that. And obviously you can keep your knife sharp, because, and this goes back to the whole premise, everything that we have here, even if you're not going to get sued because someone cut their finger on a knife, they're still going to leave with a bad memory. Oh, you remember when we went on vacation and we stayed there and Mike cut his hand open? Yeah, let's not do that again. You don't want, regardless of whether you're required to or not, you don't want people to leave with bad memories of their stay. You want them to come back. And if they're not going to come back and stay with you, you want them to continue to use properties in our industry. It's good for the industry and everybody in it.
So we have a handful of questions, which we'll get to in a second, Heather, if you want to kind of.
I just want to mention one other thing, because I know when I was going around talking to owners and talking about safety, they would always mention cost. This is going to cost me money, and and one of the often repeated comments that I got was, I'll get to it after I've made some money on the first few rentals. You've heard that, Justin, haven't you?
I can't. It drives. I just got to say, Heather, I was with somebody the other day, and the cleaner had to rush back because she forgot to flush the set up the pillows right. She's like, I got to run back. I got to fix the pillows. I'm like, well, did you check the smoke alarm? No, I just know I got to fix the pillow. I'm like, the pillows are more important than the smoke alarm. You didn't check that. We got our priorities wrong.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I think people do have priorities wrong. But let's just talk about cost. That people thinking that this is safety improvements aren't worth the cost. How do we get that across to people? That, I mean, maybe it is with the statistics, and you've got a few statistics that you can share, Justin. I know that would show how the
I think I want to, because I do know how to do it, but I want to hear what Sarah, because Sarah's on the front lines with these owners all the time, and I'm kind of curious because I think they've mastered how they do this.
I don't know if I'm gonna give you the answer that you want, Justin. It might be there. I don't know what it is, but I can tell you that it's been important for us from day one to be the best in our marketplace, and so we have property owners who want to work with us, and it's just a part of our onboarding process. It's not an option for them. This is the onboarding process. Here is the investment in making sure we're keeping your property safe and the people in it. It's just, you know what I mean? So if anyone would ever stop us, it's like, well, then we're not aligned, because this is something that it's non-negotiable for our company. This is how we stay the best. This is how we attract the most amount of direct bookings and the best guests that come and stay with us. And that's not up for discussion, so and you have to work to get to that point, of course. And I know there are some people where they want to get started and they want to work with anyone who will allow them the opportunity, but you don't want to have that situation where you're looking back and you're like, I wish I would have done this thing that was very easy and actually in hindsight quite inexpensive, to having the weight of a terrible event and or a lawsuit or whatever can happen. You can't turn back time. That's done.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. The best, exactly. The best in this industry are definitely addressing safety. They're working with professional designers. And here's the reality. It costs basically about 1 week's rent over a 10-year time period.
Wait, like that.
It's about a week. If you're renting your property for $3,000 a week, you got to put $3,000 into it to address, the best smoke alarms, the best carbon monoxide alarms, and maybe you got to install a new egress window and make sure people can charge their EVs okay. If you're renting your property for, $80 a night, okay, that's fine. You probably have a smaller place. You probably don't need as much of those different type of things. But that's what I see over about a 10-year time period. You're looking at roughly equivalent to about a peak week's worth of rental, and I think that's well worth it.
Mm-hmm. I see, I don't know if everyone can see this, but someone mentioned the lack of budget. How can we fix it? And I mean this, if Annette was here, my business partner, she would finesse this more than I will. I'm just a little bit more blunt and direct, but it's like, if you can't invest the $3,000 or whatever it takes to make it safe, then you're not quite ready to open up for business. That's just the way it is. If you're a commercial business, you would have to pass certain inspections to be able to serve the community. So until those things are things that we have to face as short-term rental owners and operators, it's just, I don't know. It's that simple.
I mean, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to get into. I was going to say, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to get into regulations. But I think this point that you just made is, we are in a very unique position in our industry, is that we're seldom are we regulated to the same level as commercial accommodations like hotels and resorts. And the issue is going to raise its head in every jurisdiction, where it will be a requirement that you have to meet the same codes and the same requirements under the fire code, whatever area you're in, as those commercial occupancies. That's where it's going to head eventually. I think that's inevitable. So I think if you can have that in your mindset, that you will have to have fire extinguishers, you'll have to have exit signs, you'll have to have escape plans, you'll have to have, inspections, and have that in your mind that is going to happen at some point in the ownership of your business. It will. Doesn't matter where you are. Mm-hmm. Start chipping away at these things that hotels have to have. Look it up. Find out what your hotels in your jurisdiction have to have, and just start, addressing those issues. If you can already be there, and then when those regulations come up, especially if you're a professionally managed property management company, you can go to the table and present yourself and say, we're already doing this. So don't accuse us of not, of being cheap and trying to, in the share economy of being, getting away with everything. No, we are meeting, and if not exceeding, what the hotels are doing. And that's how we actually win that fight. That's how we win that battle, where we can present the fact that we are responsible business owners. So anybody listening to this, take that time to research what your jurisdiction requires for your commercial grade accommodations, and begin to start applying that to every property.
So Mike, we're coming up on just over 10 minutes to go, and I know we've got quite a few questions, so I think we should begin to address some of those. I'm
going to kick off right away with, so there's a big shout out from Chris Morn, who was our expert in trust last week, to Justin for everything that you do in our industry. And I completely agree. I think that having, a voice like yours and several other individuals who are kind of getting going on the safety train and really getting out there and promoting this, it's incredibly valuable, incredibly important. And we really appreciate everything that you do. And I'm not sure if you get enough thanks often enough.
I appreciate it, and I'm anxious to keep seeing people do what they need to do, and it's a win. I used to, I first appeared, on Heather's podcast 3 years ago, and Sarah's 5 years ago. It used to be maybe once a month you'd hear of something really bad, it's multiple times a day now. It's a lot, and we all need to start addressing and doing this stuff. Everybody needs to be an advocate for it, and I'm just happy that I've been able to light the match.
So
Yeah.
So thank you for that. So I've actually, Chris has actually put through a bunch of questions. And if anybody's watching this live, please put in the comments of the platform that you're watching any questions you might have. And if you're watching this after the fact, if you're watching the replay on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, you can also put in your questions in the comments and we will get back to you as soon as we can. This is a big question. So, oh, that does actually look pretty good. So this is a big one. I know, Justin, you've addressed this before, is the weight limits and even the construction of, decks and platforms, either attached or not attached to buildings, which I know is included in your safety program. I mean, the question of should safety be enforced? Obviously it should, but again, we are in this gray zone where many jurisdictions don't come out and inspect a house that has had renovations done to it. Yes, there will be a building code inspector when it's constructed, but after that, you're on your own. This is open to everybody. What suggestions do you guys have for ensuring that the properties that you're marketing, they are actually the infrastructure of the property, the building, HVAC systems, everything is actually geared towards the occupancy. Because I think that's a big issue that a lot of companies face, is owners wanting to overcrowd their properties.
I want to hear more from these two ladies, these amazing ladies that we have on here, because I know they've both dealt with this, and I'm happy to do a quick wrap up to it.
Well, Jessica, I have a question for you is, how does a designer help us? Because it goes both ways of they're the cheap owners who say they want to sleep 16 and there's a table of 4 in the dining room and you're like, I don't know how this works out.
That's my biggest pet peeve. That drives me crazy.
But then they have, all these bunk beds that aren't by Icon Bunks. So I'm going to Google after this. You know what I mean? In one room with one tiny window that who even knows if it's, proper egress. So what is this like that probably needs to be a conversation that someone has as they're getting ready to map out their design of how do we accommodate for the appropriate amount of human beings in the home?
Well, one of the things I say is, and like you and your safety standards and who you're going to work as managing their project or not, if a client comes to us and wants to sleep 16 and not meet the type of aesthetics or experience that the guests should really have, then they're not a good fit for what we need to do either, because we're not going to see eye to eye. Because what we say is, why would you expect somebody to pay you money to live with what you would personally not tolerate if you were a guest? Would you personally want to rent a place that doesn't care about safety or put 16 in a house with 4 chairs at a table? You wouldn't want that. So why do you expect somebody to pay you to get that? So if we can't meet eye to eye there, then we're not a good fit. So going back to to that question and to the balcony question, I got a little lost on that, so I apologize, but we definitely have times where people will come to us with those types of questions, and we make a call to an engineer and make sure that we have met all the requirements, because that is not in my wheelhouse, but we can find somebody that can tell us, because you're saving all of this money now, but anybody that's had one incident, they could turn back time and take that moment to just think ahead. One bad review, one bad guest experience, what price do you put on that? It's just amazing. And the properties that do invest in design and safety and all of these things, they're thriving in this saturated market. We just completed a project in Bandon, Oregon that is exceeding their expectations. And we tried to check all these boxes for them. And they're thriving in an area that is, got a lot of other competition. So make that investment. I don't know how you put a price on it otherwise, personally.
Chris is in Europe, so I know he probably wants to hear me saying kilos, but I'm standing in a place where we use imperial terms. So you need to know how much your balcony or deck, you need to know. If you don't know how much weight it can support, then you got a problem. Because if You think that all 16 people showing up for a bachelorette party aren't going to do an Instagram photo on that deck? You're crazy. And they will, just because, and I see all the time, you guys all see it in the Facebook posts, social media. I don't know what to do. My house sleeps 4 and 8 people showed up. And I see all these people chime in and they're like, well, charge them some extra money. I'm like, no. What happens if they all go out on the balcony together? Do you know if you can support that? So you need to know that. You can't operate your property until you know what it can support. And as Jessica said, you need an engineer or a good contractor.
I want to use an analogy here. I'm in an RV, and RVs get pulled by trucks. The fifth wheel is what I'm in. And we sat here the other day, and an F-250 went past, hauling probably 44 feet of toy hauler, and we were just blown away by this, and it started the discussion of what sort of truck you need to pull what sort of trailer. And somebody said, well, it's not about whether the truck pulls the trailer, it's about what happens if that truck gets involved in an accident. And the authorities say, okay, that truck is not rated to pull that type of trailer. And this is very similar. It looks okay.
This is not your problem. You're driving down the road and they didn't check and they're doing something stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's exactly the same. You've got a balcony and you say, yeah, we have a bunch of people out on the balcony. It's always been fine until it's not.
I think the only difference in that story is that every truck and every trailer comes with a vehicle rating. Whereas we don't have that on a house. There is a rating, for the initial construction, but if you're buying something that's passed hands many, many times, there's been all kinds of renovations done, and you don't know the quality of those renovations and whether or not permits have been pulled and inspections have been done correctly. So something that I learned in Justin's course is ensuring that any property that you're renting out has had a home inspection done by a certified inspector. And this is not a safety inspection. This is a full-on home inspector every 5 years, or within 5 years, I should say. So if you're taking on a new property, this is something that, again, you could put into your terms and conditions with new owners, is that if they have not had a home inspection done within 5 years, is they get one done. And it was funny, the very first property I went to inspect after I'd passed Justin's course, they had a propane tank installed, on a big exterior propane tank, and the overpressuring valve ran through a pipe that went down into the basement. So if that tank was to be heated in the sun and it burped off a little bit of gas to release the pressure, it's burping off that gas into the basement of the house. And I pointed this out and I said, did you guys get a home inspection done? I said, no, we didn't, because they bought in COVID, where it was, a flash sale. They overbought and they wanted to rent this place, and it had all kinds of issues like that. So as the responsible party taking on a property that you're now going to rent commercially, you're taking on an awful lot of responsibility if you don't have some kind of system in place to make sure these properties are inspected and rated for weights and capacities for the occupancy that you're planning on allowing.
We got any more questions, Mike?
Yes. I wonder how this one's going to show up. Okay. So safety in short-term rentals is either one, lack of knowledge, people not implementing safety is either lack of knowledge, a disregard for safety to cut corners, or lack of budget. How do we fix these three issues when it comes to working with owners, or if you are renting your own property? You've got to look at, are you not doing these safety things because of one of these three issues? Justin, I'll throw this to you in terms of how we drill this into people.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's the one that's missing. It's number 4. It's lack of regulations, and I know you're going to talk about that. Until someone's told they have to do something, they don't want to do it. And people are willing to take risks every day and go, well, I'm insured, and if someone falls down the stairs, I'm covered. Well, you are until a forensic architect grabs your listing off Airbnb and looks at it and finds out that your handrail was an inch too low, and as a result, it's not being covered by insurance. So the lack of knowledge goes back. It's really interesting. I mean, when I went to school as a kid, all they taught in kindergarten was make sure you're not afraid of a firefighter. And Mike, you probably do this. You're a firefighter. You go to school and you breathe with the mask on, sound like Darth Vader. And that's safety training. Hey, we did safety training week. The kids aren't scared of the firemen now. Well, that's great. But how do we put out a fire? How do we prevent fires? Why is a smoke alarm the most important thing in my house? So education is definitely a number 2 piece there.
Yeah, and I think that this doesn't just stem from educating your owners about, it also extends to your staff and your team. If you have people out on the ground, they need to go through Justin's course. So you need to have somebody in your organization who's teaching safety in properties. So that way you have multiple sets of eyes who are able to spot something and make the appropriate person aware that it can be remedied, to ensure that the crazy little things that we miss. As Justin said, like not testing the smoke alarm between guests, and that's between guests. That's not monthly, and that's not when you change the batteries twice a year. It's between every single guest.
It's what Sarah said. The best do that. The best do that. What sets us apart from our competitors? Showcase that. When you work with us, we're the best. We check this stuff so that you don't have to worry about it.
So anyway, so we've just come up to the top of the hour. There are a few more questions. You can find those. Actually, the best spot to find them is in the comments on the LinkedIn for the replay for this video. So if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube, head over to LinkedIn, and you will be able to check out some of the comments. And I know Justin will be in there, and all of us will be in there answering any questions that we can if you have anything after this. So as we wrap up, any last points? I'll pass this to you, Heather.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody, all you 3, for joining us. Sarah, I think everybody should go to Thanks for Visiting, listen to the podcast. I love how, Sarah, you've connected with Justin and have him on your show really frequently to share safety tips. This is getting this message out. And then Jessica, with the whole design entry into vacation rentals is amazing, and the Vacation Rental Design Summit is definitely something that all hosts and managers should think about attending. You can go talk to designers. Tell us a little bit more about it, Jessica, before we wrap up.
Yeah, because we are team owner and property manager. So this is a collaboration. Some people don't think of that for these designers, but the summit, it will be our 3rd one. It's this June in High Point, North Carolina. And it is literally the only summit or conference that is focused on design and ROI for short-term rental design. And that is very unique, and it's a completely different type of way of designing and communicating in the design world. So we would love to have you, and you will be connecting directly with not only designers that specialize in this, but brands and products and education only for this subject.
That's terrific. And of course, Justin, as ever, thank you so much for all you do for everybody in this industry. Mm-hmm. And Justin, really thank you for starting this whole thing off way back in 2023.
I throw curveballs at people all the time I get to go to a lot of conferences speaking about safety, and people sometimes say, but what are some of the best conferences in the industry? I'm like, well, thanks for visiting live. I don't know, Sarah, are you guys doing that this year?
Not this year, but
keep an ear out. When Thanks for Visiting is doing something, it's usually pretty epic. And when I say the Vacation Rental Design Summit, I went last year. Tyann is heavily involved with supporting that, the queen of vacation rentals. So when she said, we got to get you over here, and I went in there, I was like, this is incredible. It was like pretty much the best conference I went to in the industry last year. I learned so much, and there were so many incredible people there. So 2 great people to follow right here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So as we just wrap up, thanks again to our top sponsor, Guesty, for sponsoring Stir Crazy Month. Tune in tomorrow, which will be Wednesday, the 5th of February, for the podcast with Justin Ford, where we're literally diving into this 2 a.m. slip and fall with Staywise Rentals. Learn how, this could quite easily happen to any of us.
It's me at 2 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah, this could happen to any of us. So, this is one of those things to listen to in terms of how you can prevent this, and also how you can deal and have your systems in place to prepare for dealing with these kinds of immediate issues that will befall all of us at some point. If you are not yet registered for the STIR Crazy Month and the opportunity to win 2 VIP tickets to VR Nation Conference in Austin, Texas, April 27th, 28th, then make sure you head across to vacationrentalformula.com/STIR, and then you will have access to the app and the gamification features, and that is where we will be each week putting up our leaders and giving them the props they deserve for getting involved and doing all these things. I'm going to throw in the music again as we wrap up here at the end. So thank you everybody for stirring it up, and we will see you on a panel next week where we'll be talking about insurance with the team from Proper and Wavo, as well as a client of Proper who's actually been through a claim and is willing to talk about how they solved that issue. So thank you everybody for joining, and we'll see you again soon.